Are you lazy in bed? And I don't mean on a Sunday morning, baby. I mean with your partner when you're making love. If so, you're in the right place because today's episode is focusing on your 3 top tips to be a better lover in 2024. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Elephants and this series of podcasts where we're really focusing on jump-starting the year. Here we are in the beginning of 2024. To hell with New Year's resolutions. They all fell by the wayside on about January 2nd. But love and great relationship is not an accident, and it is a lifelong journey of rebooting, of starting again, of making an effort over and over. I share with the couples I work with slogans to tattoo in our mind, and some of them are make love intentional. Make your love life a hobby, become the passion you want. So today, I guess gently and lovingly, a little bit of tough love, I want to take you to task for who you are being as a lover. Now, let's cast your mind way back, or not so long ago for some of you in a newer relationship. But I want you to remember, if you're in a committed relationship or a casual, consensual relationship, remember the beginning of your sexual life together. And I know there may have been some awkward bumps and non-bumps and that strange feeling of getting naked for the first time and the hopes and expectations. And maybe they don't know your body and your rhythms yet, especially if you have a female body. Maybe they don't really know how you orgasm, et cetera, et cetera. But I want you to think back to how spicy or adventurous or open or willing or playful or hot or uninhibited you were in the beginning. This won't apply to everybody listening, but I bet it will apply to about 80% of us, where we were actually more open and playful as a lover in the early days, early months, maybe early year or two with our current partner. Now, why the heck is that? Weirdly, as we make deeper steps towards commitment, whether that's the first time we say, I love you, or I want to be exclusive with you, or let's look at moving in together, or let's get married, or you get married, or let's have a child one day, whatever these steps towards more and more commitment and depth are, we tend to weirdly, when the stakes are higher, when our connection is deeper, when we have more to lose. I mean, if we say, I love you and we're monogamous and let's get married and have kids one day, whether or not that's your model, that's absolutely fine if you're polyamorous, consensual non-monogamy. But I'm going to talk to the majority of my current listeners using that language, totally inclusive to apply this to your own way of loving and being loved. But if you've made those sorts of commitments, the stakes are higher and we're more vulnerable than when it was the first few months and we were really attracted and maybe falling in love and maybe hoping there'd be a long-term path to travel together. But where if we'd broken up or if we'd said, hey, I'd like to try this really wild fantasy I have, and they'd said, ooh, screaming urge of breaks, I'm not at all interested in that. That doesn't turn me on at all. The stakes weren't as high for rejection. The stakes weren't as high for rejection in the bedroom around a certain encounter, and they weren't as high for the overall worry and concern. How does my partner see me? Am I safe here? Are they here for the distance, no matter who I am, warts and all, kinks and all, mistakes I've made in my past and all? So, first point today, not your top 3 tips, they're coming next. First point today is, have you become a lazy lover? Pretty easy to tell. Do you suggest new or interesting positions? Do you spend more than 1 minute on foreplay? And is your foreplay ever a variety of activities? Or do you have what I call, rather infamously now, if you're a listener, nipple, nipple, crotch, goodnight, where you tend to do the same thing? And it's lovely. I'm not dissing it. I love me some nipple, nipple, crotch, goodnight. You know what that is. It's where I touch you here, you caress me there. Ideally, we both move towards arousal and turn on and orgasm. Maybe not, but ideally, that's maybe what we're after. And it's fun and it's satisfying and it's nice. Are you willing to settle for nice as the benchmark for success for your sexual life? I know a lot of you are not. So, have you become a lazy lover? Are you inventive? Do you suggest things? Do you please your lover's body for 30 minutes at a time? Maybe tying their hands behind their back or saying, hold your hands away from your body. Don't touch me. Don't touch yourself. Just lay there and receive. Let me pleasure you with my lips, my teeth, my tongue, maybe a toy, maybe a feather, maybe draping my long hair over your body. Do you worship at the altar of your lover? At least on occasion, the way I suspect you may have earlier in your relationship. So, today, 3 top tips to be a better lover in 2024. Now, you may want to skip back a couple of episodes after this and listen to the 3 top tips I gave for better sex in 2024. Today's emphasis is different. I'm bringing it to you. It's up to you to be a great lover, to, as I say in the name of my online 3 months couples program, is become passion. Instead of hanging around saying, well, we used to be so much more passionate, or I wish we had more passion, or my partner is really not passionate and it's just such a drag. Right? Become the passion you seek. Okay, here we go. Tip number one. Tip number one is learn what turns you on. You may think you know, but maybe you're 20, maybe you're 75, maybe you're 90, maybe you're 43. What you think turns you on and what has historically turned you on, and that can be in terms of mental turn on, a fantasy. You love the idea of being at a bar and you're with your partner and they start fondling you under the table and you open your legs and you look across the bar and someone's watching and it's a real turn on for you. Maybe that's a favorite fantasy. Maybe that's a fantasy you masturbate to, or it's a fantasy you utilize when you're making love with your partner to help you get to orgasm. Nothing wrong with that. But do you know what else turns you on these days? One of the exercises I have the couples in my 3 month program, which is not exclusively about sex at all. The first, 2/3 of it are about communication, conflict resolution, learning to understand each other, romance, more thrill, more, etc. You can learn more about that program if you like. You can get on the wait list and learn a tiny bit about it. If you click below wherever you're listening to this podcast, the next group session, I take a group of couples through a 12-week journey with me, is going to be kicking off in early March this year, 2024. We'll be opening the doors in mid-April. But in that program, when we get to the latter third of the program, where we're focusing on sex and sensuality and eroticism, the first exercise, the first homework, the first thing I get my couples to do is to independently from each other fill out an extensive sort of questionnaire, deep dive, sort of, I call it a home play sheet, which says what turns me on and what turns me off. And I take you through a number of questions like, these days, what sensual or sexual activities do I enjoy? And that might be, I enjoy getting my hair stroked. I love it when my partner brushes my hair or strokes my hair. It can be something much more direct, like I like to have my nipples played with really hard. I like them to be bit and suckled and teased and some pressure put on them. Or I really love oral sex, particularly if my partner takes my penis deep, deep into their mouth and throat. I find that a super turn on. So some things may be quite obvious to you that you're pretty familiar with what some of your turn ons are. But what other turn ons might you have? What other mental turn-ons might you have? So your first tip to be a better lover in 2024 and beyond for the rest of your life is basically to get much more acquainted with your own turn-ons first. So you know what you're bringing to the table or the bed or the couch or the wherever. You get my drift. So yes, I'm talking also about masturbation here. Really want to emphasize the power and the beauty of cultivating a masturbation life, even if it's only so you can learn better what turns you on. If you have a female body, if you're a female bodied or female identified bodied person, and you're working with a vulva or some approximation thereof, and a clitoris or an approximation thereof, learning what kind of clitoral pressure or non-pressure, learning whether you like vaginal penetration with a dildo, a finger, or a toy on your own, or do you love to lay on your tummy and kind of grind your hips into a pillow and have a diffuse pressure across your lower abdomen and pelvic wall area? Is that what turns you on? What helps you come? What feels too intense for you? Have you spent time, female or male, but I'm mainly talking about females right now, playing with your breasts, playing with your nipples, stroking your armpits and along your inner wrist? Do you really know what turns you on? Can you create a body map of sensations of where you like to be touched? You can try this on your own. You can get a piece of ribbon or a feather or a soft piece of fabric, maybe a scarf you already have kicking around in your closet right now. And you can lay and you can drape and swoosh that material or that texture around your body, everywhere from in between your toes to the top of your head. And I almost guarantee you're going to discover some erogenous zones in your body that you didn't know. Like, wow, turns out the back of my neck, slightly to the right, is really a light up zone for me. When I drape this bit of fabric or this silk across it, it feels really erotic and sensual and pleasurable. I like that. Well, then guess what, my darlings? When you know more what turns you on, you can bring it into bed or wherever with your sweetheart and say, I would love it if you would lick and nibble my neck right here. And you can point to the place. And it's a light up zone for you. And it's great for your partner because they're like, oh, now I know when I nibble your neck when we're out at a party, it drives you wild. If you have a male body, same advice, insert genitals here, no pun intended, although, man, that's a pretty good pun. Um, Play with your penis. Don't just go from 0 to 10, 10 being ejaculate orgasm, 0 being not turned on at all. You start to masturbate, you play with your penis, you start to do whatever your preferred penis hand job activity for yourself is or whatever you're using. And you're generally probably in a journey. You're probably pretty much in a destination. I start masturbating, I do it quite quickly, I come pretty quickly. Nothing wrong with that. But it can train you inadvertently to premature ejaculate with your partner if your penis is used to getting aroused and then having a jackpot ejaculation really quickly. Can make it a little more difficult or a lot more difficult to slow down when you're having intercourse with your partner, female, male, he, she, they, LGBTQ, whomever you choose. On your own, guys, or penis-bodied people or penis-identified people, can you tease and play in a succulent, slow manner with your penis? Can you bring yourself up to, say, a 5 or 6 out of 10, if 10 is ejaculation orgasm on an arousal scale, and then stop and allow your desire and your arousal to subside a little bit and then go up again and then subside a little bit? Can you see what turns you on there? Then you can train your partner with his or her mouth, toy, anus, vagina, whatever you're working with, to say, these are things that really turn me on. Same exercise for you. Get a piece of fabric, drape it all around your body. This may sound a bit silly or fanciful to you. Oh, I challenge you to do it. Fanciful or silly, you talk to me after you've body mapped your sensory system. Talk to me after you find out that your kneecap leads directly to clitoral engorgement or penis engorgement. Find out. We're talking about 3 steps to be a better lover in 2024. And the first step is to know much more of what turns you on in your mind and in your body so you can share that with your partner. Okay, your second tip, share a fantasy. This one is really easy for some of you and way out of your comfort zone for others of you listening. You may have been together for 25 years already. And the idea of telling your partner that when you're reaching orgasm, you have a recurring fantasy you go to where you're a naughty schoolgirl and the teacher has caught you making out with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and they've called you into their office and they're going to spank you or they're going to teach you a lesson or ask you to touch yourself or whatever your fantasy is. I bet a lot of you listening have a recurring fantasy you use reasonably often during masturbation or during sex with your partner, and your partner doesn't have a clue what it is. Now, is that bad? Absolutely not. Let me be very reassuring here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you have a private fantasy you haven't shared, and you might choose not to share some or all of your fantasies, that's okay. But if you want to be a better lover, what would it be for you to take that little gentle step outside your comfort zone and say, hey, there's something that turns me on. It's just a fantasy, but I would love to share that with you. How can I do that, Dr. Cheryl? Well, a couple of ways. One is I love to get people to script their fantasy out, write it. Type it, handwrite it. If you've got readable writing, it's a bit frustrating for your sweetie to try to read your hot fantasy if they cannot figure out your chicken scratch. That would be my writing. But write it. I have this fantasy, and here I am. I'm in school, and I'm making out with my boyfriend behind the bleachers, and the hunky young teacher I've got a crush on finds us, and then he beckons me into his office and says, we need to have a conversation. You've been a very bad girl. Boy, insert preferred gender pronoun here as you wish. How hot can that be for your partner? Really hot. Now, you need to handle this with a little bit of judiciousness and care. If that's way out of where the two of you are yet, you may need to work up to this. You might share a more romantic fantasy about the two of you first. That's a beautiful homework I also give, is to think of a particularly hot sexual encounter you've had with your current partner back in the beginning or last week, I hope, and script it out. And then I touched you here and I took you in my mouth and I had my fingers inside you and you were bucking against my fingers and it was so hot. Share a fantasy. You can write it down and leave it as a little love note. You can both write them down and share them verbally, maybe over a bottle of champagne. You can just simply whisper it into your partner's ear while you're having sex, while you're making love to heat things up. But consider sharing a fantasy. It's really a beautiful way to actually become a better lover. And the third thing is, goodness sake, these people, read a book, take a class, get some education, learn more. Go to a high-end, beautiful sexuality shop, look at the toys, look at the techniques. I'm going to do a whole episode on sex toys coming up, probably right before Valentine's Day. So I'll dive more deeply into that topic in about a couple of episodes from today. But for now, when's the last time you learned anything legit about sex? And I'm not talking about reading Hustler magazine or whatever the equivalents are these days. I'm talking about reading a book. There's so many great books out there. Ian Kerner is a wonderful sex therapist and a colleague of mine. He's got a book for men who want to make love with women called She Comes First, which is teaching you to be a better lover. There's another book I like a lot by Mantak Chia called The Multi-Orgasmic Man, which helps you men learn to control your ejaculation better and potentially have more pleasure and make you last longer with your partner. For women, there's so many books. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head here, but there's a classic book by Lonnie Barback called For Yourself, which is an exploration of your own vulva, vagina, clitoris, and orgasm response. There's books on anal sexuality. There's books on my friend Lori Brado's book, Better Sex Through Mindfulness for Women. My own book, Buddha's Bedroom, is great for couples. The latter third of that book, much like my 3-month immersion program you can do with me, is focused on sex and sexuality. And I've got some great exercises in there for couples around everything from conscious orgasm to what to do when you're not in the mood. So get your lazy ass off your lazy bed and do some darn studying. You study to be a better golf player. You study to be better at your work. You even read parenting books so you can work with a phase that your child's going through that's a bit challenging for you. Why the heck don't people study their sexuality more? That's partly why I'm on the planet, is to help us study our love, our communication, our conflict, our heartbreak, our healing, and yes, our erotic life. So take a course. Happy to have you in mind this spring. Would love to meet you. Find a different course if I'm not your flavor. Read some books, do some research. Don't be so lazy. Learn more about sexual responsivity, the possibilities, the plethora of options that are out there to be a better lover and a more interesting, exciting lover for you and for your beloved. And that brings us to this episode's Love Bite. Are you a lazy lover? If so, get out of your bed, get out of your head, and start choosing to be a much better lover. Cultivate your fantasies, cultivate your own arousal, and train to be much better in bed to bring more love and passion to you and your sweetheart. All right, that's it for me today. I can't wait to be back with you next week, where I'm going to give you 3 tips to be kinder to your partner and yourself in 2024. Hope you'll be listening then.